Hello again. It's the episode 5 of the 343 podcast. I'm your host, AF. And yeah, there's some interesting topics we got for you guys today. Welcome back to Nikita, Mubeen Ahmed, and our all things football correspondent, Wasim and Mubeen.
Thanks for having us.
Hey guys, hi everybody.
Good to have you guys on again. So yeah, there's been a lot happening in the world of football. Managers are under pressure because of bad results, as is the usual. Watford have just sacked their manager and replaced him with Claudio Ranieri, who is a fantastic appointment, if I may add. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he's under tremendous amount of pressure as well because of his bad run. And then there's Newcastle.
I was hoping you're going
Sorry?
to say you got this. I said I was hoping you're going to say you got the sack, but
no, that's a discussion for later on. But yeah, then there's Steve Bruce and Newcastle. Wasim, you yourself are a huge Newcastle fan, but are you Bruce out?
Definitely, I'm Bruce out. I've been Bruce out for a very long time, and yeah, it's just sadly it feels like all my calls and all the fans' calls for Bruce out. It's just going to fall on deaf ears because the club, they run the club the way they want to. They don't really care about other people or the media or the fans. So they do whatever they feel is necessary. And their aim is just to keep the club in the Premier League. So we're currently second from bottom without a win in 7 games. But the board or the chairman and the owner, they feel that the club has not been relegated in the last few years. The squad is good enough in their eyes, so they're not going to really do anything, no matter what the fans say. So the fans can shout and jump for Bruce out. It's just not going to make a difference, sadly, unless the run continues and maybe after 14, 15 games, we're still in the bottom 3, still without a win. Then perhaps something might happen, but sadly, it seems like it's going to be Bruce out and Bruce out for a while still. And yeah, I don't even know if I want to hope that we stay winless because Bruce can go out, because by then we might even be in such trouble that it will be relegated. So I don't know. It's just a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, it's and you don't think that those, like the players at Newcastle, like the players that demand more, would want to stay around? I mean, I'm talking about Alan Saint-Maximin and Miguel Almiron. They are players that know that they should be getting better results with the type of squad that they have. But it seems like Steve Bruce is clueless himself. I mean, I saw a video clip being passed around the other day where he basically said himself that he doesn't know what he's doing.
Okay, I think in fairness to him, he was talking about the court hearing, and he said, you know, I have no idea what's going on. But I use that as a meme to sort of, you know, make fun of him. But I think the truth is he really doesn't know what he's doing. He spoke about 12 months ago, we played against Wolves. And at that stage, we were also using the 5 at the back formation. And then we switched to 4, a back 4. And he said at that game, we're trying to find the balance of, you know, playing 5 at the back or 4 at the back. And, you know, that was 2 years after he's in charge. He's now, another year later, he again reverted to 4 at the back for this game. And then during the game, we played 5 at the back. So it's like, as a manager, when does it, you know, come a point where you actually just stick with one thing? Because he's chopping and changing, and it shows that he just doesn't know what's best for the squad of players that he has, for, you know, his type of managerial style. He just chops and changes because he feels like, you know, perhaps if I change it here, it might get us a result against this team. And if I revert back to something else, it might get us a result. Whereas why don't you just work on a philosophy or what's best for your squad and stick with it throughout the season? Because then, you know, it should work out. But yeah, it's just he really is clueless. And sadly, we've got like 3 or 4 assistant coaches, and they seem to have more knowledge than him. But what point is it if the head coach is the one making the decisions and he's the one that's clueless?
Yeah. So what's your verdict though? You think if this run keeps on, if Bruce stays at the helm, do you think it's relegation? Do you think that they can
feel
save the season somehow?
I feel there's enough quality in the squad to get us to survive. And sadly, like, survival shouldn't be the be all and end all, but it is with our club. But with Wilsons and Maximum, Almiron, we've got good enough players. Willock, who did fairly well last season also. We've got a good bunch of players who can do so much better. So I feel they will eventually get us out of trouble and we'll finish mid-table or below that. But yeah, I think that's, as fans, that isn't what we want. We actually want a team that's going to be pushing for top 10 and beyond. And clubs like West Ham, Brentford, they're showing it's possible. But so I think we will be okay. We will survive. Bruce will probably stay and not get sacked during the course of the season. But it's just going to see us in another situation like this perhaps next season and the season thereafter, until the point we actually get a takeover. So my prayers are still with the takeover happening next year, so that hopefully as fans our suffering will stop.
But don't you think that's where the issue lies, essentially? Because I feel like it's a cycle when it comes to Newcastle. I mean, it's not like they're getting, average managers. They're getting high caliber, top caliber managers. I mean, Rafa Benitez, just to name one at the top of my head. And it's a cycle because the club goes nowhere, the team goes nowhere. They're always sort of, fringing towards the bottom of the table and just surviving towards the end of the season. So yeah, and I agree. I don't think Bruce knows exactly what he's doing, which is surprising because he's a seasoned manager. But I feel, again, like with Arsenal, I think it's an issue further up top in the boardroom with the owners. I think essentially that is where the problem lies. I don't think Mike Ashley knows whether he actually wants to sell the club, because they had a bid from the Middle East not too long ago, or whether he actually wants to keep the club.
I think that's where
the Premier League stopped that though.
Yeah, he's still pursuing that in the courtroom, and that will resolve itself hopefully January 2022. So it's in 3 months' time. And he's still pursuing that. So if he wins that case, the takeover will probably go through. But that is the issue. Yes, Mike Ashley is the issue, because he doesn't really want to put in or get involved in the club. So for him, like, if he's going to have a very good manager, and he had that with Rafa, but Rafa was pushing him. Rafa said, okay, season 1 we might finish 13th, but season 2 and 3 I want to finish 10th, and then maybe 8th, and then push on to the top 6. But that's not what he wants, because he knows if he's going to do that, then he's going to have to put more money into the club. And he's not really of that. He wants the club to be self-sufficient. It must run on its own without him having to get involved in the day-to-day affairs. So that is why he sticks with a manager or a squad that he feels is sufficient to stay in the Premier League. But that's it. He doesn't want to get involved in anything else. So the only change at the club that will really, really see us progress is if Mike Ashley sells. And yeah, I don't know when that would be. Hopefully it could be with those Middle Eastern Saudi owners, if the court case gets won. But if not, then it could be a very, very long time before that happens.
Yeah, I hope for your sake that there's a resolve in the future, in the near future, if I may add.
Me
but
too.
yeah.
So Newcastle is a big club. It doesn't deserve to be going through this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Honestly. It's one of my favorite clubs. I got a very soft spot for the Geordies. They're real fans, real troopers. The St. James's Park pumps. It just will be so disappointing to see Newcastle in the championship next year or ever again, really. So really holding times for you guys, Wasim.
Thanks, Nikita.
Nice one. So moving on to teams that have started the season punching well above their weight. Brentford and Brighton have both started the season so well. Nikita, do you think that it's sustainable?
It has to end at some time, right? It's gotta run out. I think this was the approach I took when Leicester were like up there when they won the league, whatever traded year that was. And I was just like, it can't perpetuate. But I mean, Brighton has gone on a fantastic run. I mean, and so has Brenton. You look at the teams, as supporters of maybe bigger clubs would look at the teams they've played and say, oh, well, but someone once said, you beat the Dross, you win the league. And I mean, if you look at the points they've racked up, the points they put on the table, and, where they should be punching, they're well ahead of their weight. And even if it does come down to, them, slacking off. I mean, December is hard on all clubs, but, especially on the smaller clubs, so to speak. Newly promoted clubs really struggle in December, quantum of fixtures, injuries, all those types of things. It just sets them off on a good base. If 37 points is the target for a club like Brentford, for example, then geez, when you start off on a good run like this, then it makes it, I'm sure it gives impetus to the club, the fans, the players. I mean, I saw Graham Potter's spotting a fancy hippie beard now. He's really getting into this whole, managerial facade. He's looking more like Arteta by the second, more hipster and whatever. But I think, I really should, I love seeing, smaller clubs taking scalps and taking points of teams and shocking us, because that's why we love this league. You can go to what is the community stadium, in Brentford and Liverpool, who I think, probably look as good as ever under Klopp, that, can go toe to toe. And at one point there in the last kind of 10 minutes, when I was biting my nails because I thought, that Brentford were going to get the winner. So I love it. Long may continue. I don't think it will continue. I really think December will probably be the be-all and end-all, if it even lasts that long. And as much as I say beat the Dross, win the league, they didn't manage to beat Everton. So that's disappointing for me as a Liverpool fan. But I really wish those two clubs in particular all the success, in the same way that I wish like Newcastle all the success, and in the same way that I wish Aston Villa could get relegated every year if it was possible. But enough about these small clubs. I think I need to bring to the fore the fantastic, I won't even say 90 minutes because the first 45 were trash, but the fantastic 45 minutes that we saw in the second half of Liverpool versus City on the weekend. I don't know about you, but I wasn't on the edge of my seat. I was like curled up in a ball because I was so tense throughout that second half. But I mean, one cannot overlook, and I know I'm biased, but the brilliance of Mohamed Salah, man. The guy is brilliant, and I think for a lot of Liverpool supporters, because, it took us so long, 30 years to win the league. We've really been blessed with a lot of fantastic strikers. And I think for a lot of us, we've always been, a bit tentative about, really speaking out about the quality of our strikers, because, we've never won the trophy to really talk about the scalp. We've had Suarez, who I thought was insane, arguably the best striker of his generation, in my opinion. Fernando Torres, Robbie Fowler, but geez, Mo Salah, man, come on. The one season wonder just keeps pumping in the goals, the assists every week. And he's so humble. He's such an endearing, character to me. I personally don't think that the club, utilizes the adoration enough. I don't know if there's, issues with sponsorship or whatever, but geez, I mean, for Liverpool fans to call a player a king after 2 seasons, there's only one other guy who we call king, and I think it just shows the adoration that he has on the Kop. I know there was a couple articles out today talking about why the Kop doesn't adore him, and that's not what I see. I've been fortunate enough to travel to Anfield a few times, and I tell you, I think people find a second lung when we sing Salah running down the wing. He's just amazing. And I really think, in 10 years' time, when we're looking at more players to add to the P&L Hall of Fame, I hope he's really like on everyone's lips, because I think we can all sit back and reflect as neutrals that there are some fantastic players in this league. Like I think Harry Kane is probably going to be one of the best strikers to never win a trophy. He's absolutely amazing. I mean, and he's got 2 rotten ankles. I mean, basically made of biscuits now. You look at that, you look, like having Cristiano back. Personally, I think Kevin De Bruyne is arguably the best midfielder, one of the best midfielders I've ever seen, and that's like, above Gerrard levels for me as a Liverpool fan. But I really hope in when we're sitting having this conversation and Roy Keane's probably fully grey, you can sit back and you can say, yeah, no, Salah needs to be inducted in that Hall of Fame, because it's been an absolute privilege watching this guy.
I was wondering when a
privilege.
Manchester United name was going to be mentioned.
Oh, no. But I mean,
Yeah.
you can ask If. I mean, I've been pretty vocal, when the first round of inductees went in. I mean, it was obvious, those two guys, Henry, Shearer, for me, greatest striker the league's ever seen, for sure, made sense. But when it came to the second round, I didn't vote for any Liverpool players. My next vote was for Roy Keane, to be honest, because I'm a big admirer of a tough central defensive midfielder. I think because Liverpool never had one for like 20 years. Yeah, just a guy who's gonna kick and, I mean, not be violent, but just do the business. We had that for a very short period of time in Mascherano, and that was probably the highlight of me growing up, seeing a central defensive midfielder. And then my club finally did the business a couple of years ago, bringing in Fabinho, and I've been very happy. But for me, Keane has always been such a boss player, man. So underrated. He's just like, he's just there.
Yeah, he just used to get on with his
and he gets
business.
angry and then he just kicks someone and he just sorts things out. And I think often those type of midfielders don't get enough credit. The guys that just do the job, not the guys who's like, the Salah or the Geeksy or even the Picks, who've got it all, the Ronaldos. But those guys are just quietly, or not quietly, forcefully go about their business, really. And I think that's an unwritten, because the game of football has changed so much. More attacking, wing backs. You underestimate those guys. So I'm a big fan. But let me stop talking and gushing about Roy Keane and Salah now, and then back to you.
If I can maybe just like add on to the Mo Salah thing, Nikita, you out of all people know that I really wasn't a Salah fan. Like for the past few seasons, I don't know, there was just something about him I didn't like. But geez, like, I mean, credit where credit's due, eh? Like, world class. And I saw a stat the other day: 101 goals and 36 assists in the past 3 seasons. That's 137 goal contributions, and I think it's 27 or something like that ahead of Harry Kane in second. It's astronomical figures. Like, it's crazy. Now the guy is world class, and he deserves all the plaudits at the moment.
And I hope that in the same breath, Dave, I hope that 3FOUR3 holds his head, and in 10 years' time or 5 years' time, we're talking about that guy like the way I gush about Mo Salah, because I think I giggled when Pep said, "Oh, he's a bigger talent than Messi." But I mean, gee whiz, the boy is good, huh? The boy is really, it's like, generational type talent, I mean, I would absolutely salivate to kind of see him and Mbappe and Haaland play, every week.
In a front three, insane.
Well, not even together, just in the same league, have that, on my screen. I say I sound like I want the ESL, but I kind of don't, and I kind of do. But yeah, no, I mean, I think he's a phenomenal talent, and I think in a couple of years, I mean, people are gushing about him already, but that's because he's British. I really think in a couple of years he's going to be a superstar.
Yeah. Okay, that's a discussion for another day, where we can chat about the young talents and if they're going to become world class one day or not. But for today, Mubeen, I spoke about Ole earlier and about how much pressure he's currently under. Do you think it's a case of him having all the weapons and not having any sort of clue or idea what to do with it?
I asked you on the previous episode not to ask me any other questions, and you gave me a word, and I should have known it's coming on this episode. I think it is a case of that. I think he's a little bit out of his depth at the moment with United. I think when he took over, we were nowhere. We had no identity. We had no sort of structure. There were guys in the team, they didn't know if they were the core or not. For example, one Lukaku, I mean, you think they signed him to be our number 9 for the next 5, 6, 7 seasons, but he leaves. We signed guys like Sanchez, obviously didn't perform, he left. So when he took over, He obviously inculcated that within the team, within the squad, at the club, and I think he's done it well up until maybe last season. And given the caliber of players that we've signed this season, I think he's taken the club as far as, in my opinion, as far as he possibly could. And my reason for saying this is that we've been, I think, you can correct me, in 3 semi-finals under him. We haven't won one, or we haven't progressed to a final from those semi-finals, and we've been in 1 final and we haven't won. And I've also seen a stat in the week where I think between Moyes, Ole, Mourinho, and Van Gaal, they more or less managed the same amount of games, give or take a few. With Moyes winning a cup, Van Gaal won 1 cup, Mourinho won 3, and Ole winning nothing. So, I mean, if you're going to start comparing, which I think is fair, and I think with Ole, he probably had the better of the squad or squads than the previous managers. I think he's run his, well, not run his race with United, but I think he's done what he could possibly do to the best of his ability, and he's done well to solidify and stabilize the club and the team up until now. But I think we need someone with a higher caliber that can take the team forward, that's got a winning mentality, and I don't think he's got it, and he's shown it against the changes he made against young boys, the continuous squad selections or starting 11s, playing a guy like Fred, who can't pick a pass for 5 yards. So yeah, that's my opinion.
So would you want if Ole were to walk the plank?
Look, it's difficult. It's difficult. I think there are a lot of managers who would want the opportunity to manage Manchester United. Like there are a lot of players who would want the opportunity to play for a club like Manchester United. There aren't many available, but I'm sure we could lure one. Off the top of my head, I don't know. There are talks, like you see in the media and you know, on social media, guys like Conte, Zidane, to mention two, you know, a guy like Allegri. There are guys that you could lure to want to manage, but I wouldn't be hasty right now just to select anyone out of the blue and say, you know, all is done and come in. We've got to choose someone that can sort of show us, or someone that we know that can take the club forward, given the squad that we have now. I don't think something should be done in haste within the next 3 to 4 weeks, but I think this next 5 or 6 game weeks, or this next 5 or 6 games, is probably going to define his season. I think it's the toughest run coming up for him, and I think that will define his season, so to say.
Player manager,
Yeah.
maybe?
I know you're hinting at Ronaldo.
I just don't understand how it's not happened yet. Okay. Like, even though I don't agree with you guys, I don't think the results have been that bad. I mean, you guys are what, like 2 or 3 points off the top? Like
2 or 3 points off the top, it hasn't, but we could have been 6 points ahead.
I think
we threw to Brentford away. Brentford away.
Fair enough. But
Chelsea with 10 men.
You look at Everton, and I'm sure. I mean, I've never managed a club besides maybe under-9 social tournament, but you obviously have your drawing board up at the beginning of the season. You look at the fixtures, and you're obviously calculating where you're going to be picking up 3 points and 1 point, so forth. And if you look, for example, the past weekend, you would want to pick up 3 points against Everton at home. You'd want to pick up points against Villa. I mean, those are points lost. So yes, we might be 2 or 3 points off the top, but we should have been at 4 or 6 points ahead of the bunch. So and I think that is why we also lost, or that is why we never sort of. I think we could have won the season last season, given the points we threw away against the so-called lesser or minor teams. Had we picked up the full or the allotted points there, I think we win the league last season.
But I suppose it does come down a lot to, because the question has to be asked, right, is what is up with your home form? Because, I mean, that's actually what it comes down to. You guys, how many are you guys still on your away run, right? I don't know how many 20 odd games
Yeah,
away run.
29, I think.
And at home, you can't beat Southampton. And I mean, it was like that. It was worse last season. And you're right, Mubeen. If you guys had just like 20% improvement on your home, on your return at home, you probably would have won a league, realistically.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's
I
the
don't
thing
know
with,
where is that coming from? Like, what is the issue there?
I think with me, if I as an outsider looking in, Ole, he's got the United fans players playing well away from home. He's got them playing well away from home, because the onus is always on the home team to perform well, or to attack, and then he hits teams on the break, and that's why McTominay and Fred are fine, away from home, because they stifle the attacks of the opponents, and then that's how he gets United to perform well away. But at home, the onus is on the home team, and that's where the limitations of Ole as a manager comes into play, because he can't set up a team, to outwit and outsmart the opponents. And I think that's why United fans are so upset, is because the potential of the squad is there. He's got them playing, a certain way, and they've got good players. The problem now is that extra 10 or 20% that you can get from a good manager or a world-class manager, they're not getting that with Ole now. And that's why they're always falling short in a Europa final or in an FA Cup semi-final or whatever it is. And I think that is the problem with Ole. He doesn't have that quality that's needed to get them to the next level. And he gets the results because of individual brilliance, Ronaldo scoring a late goal or Bruno scoring a top goal to win it. But if you look at the performances against Newcastle at home, they won 4-1. But if you actually watch the game, a struggling Newcastle side, we actually gave them a good game up until about 78 minutes. And if you look at it, 2 of the goals were of poor goalkeeping. And then, so I feel that if you look at the performances, that's the concern for Man United fans, is the performances haven't been good. They've been getting the results, but eventually your luck's going to run out. You're not going to score that last minute goal. You're not going to score, that equalizer when you potentially would lose a game. So I feel that that's the problem with Ole, and he probably will be able to keep them going for another few months or so. But ultimately, they need to ask themselves the question: where do we want to go? Do we want to win trophies? If that's the case, you're not going to get that with Ole.
Yeah, you spoke about the game against Newcastle. I mean, Ole spent about 400 mil on the squad, assembling the squad, and Everton had their 5 best players injured this past weekend. They had Damari Gray and Andros Townsend up front, Solomon Rondon as well. I mean, he at one point he looked like he was out of breath. He looked like he couldn't move anymore. And I mean, they managed to pull a draw out of the bag. It just shows you, like, Ole's in-game management is so poor. Like, his decisions on when to make substitutes. Sometimes he makes them with 3 minutes left, with 4 minutes left. I mean, your players are dying already. But yeah, like I agree with Mubeen. I think it's time up for him. I don't know if that can happen. I saw them offering, or Mike Phelan signed a new deal now until 2024. So that solidifies his position. So I don't think we're going to be seeing the back of Ole for a while, but I think it's until the end of November that he has this crazy fixture list. I think the last is Man City at the end of November. So I think we're gonna have to wait until then and take it from there. But yeah, there were some weird. I would call it weird because I didn't really agree with both of them. But yeah, like we spoke about the refereeing decisions on the last episode, and this past weekend it just stuck its head out again, and there was the James Wood-Prowse red card and the James Milner second yellow. What are your guys' thoughts about that? Like, what did you think? I'll start with Wasim.
For me, the Milner one was a clear second yellow, because Bernardo was weaving his magic, and he already at that point dribble past 2 players. If he had gone then past Milner, he would have had the field, opened up the field, and he could have potentially then gone towards the box or set up a scoring chance. So for me, it was a definite second yellow. I'm not sure how they missed it, if it was deemed that the player from behind maybe also caught him, and he wasn't sure which player actually did committed the foul that brought him down. So he perhaps went a bit cautiously and didn't give a second yellow, but that should have definitely been a red card for Milner. And that could have influenced the ending of that game, because Man City ended well. But had they played against 10 men for the last 10-15 minutes, they might have even won the game. So that was a bit of a shocking one. I think Ward-Prowse is a bit contentious, because if you look at the replays, certain angles made it look very bad, and then it looked like a red card. But I feel it's some of the red cards are also a bit too soft, because it's almost like they're just seeing, okay, he's caught his ankle there, that looks dangerous, okay, there's a red card. But in other games, similar tackles, but then you don't get the red card. So I feel that they need to sort of not only look at the replays in slow motion and then say, okay, that's a dangerous tackle. Look at it in real time also and judge. So I was a bit surprised by the refereeing decisions.
I completely agree with you, Wasim. Like the Milner one, like I was like, okay, he's off. Just we now must hunker down and take Salah off and bring on Joe Gomez or whatever. It was a completely ridiculous decision. I think Paul Tierney is probably, I mean, none of the Premier League refs are very good, but I think Paul Tierney is probably like one of the worst ones out there. Honestly, he's just shocking week on week on week. I couldn't believe he got that fixture. It should have been Michael Oliver all season for me, but ridiculous. And then on the Ward-Prowse one, I don't know if what happened to Harvey Elliott is now influencing decisions, because I mean, even in slow-mo for me personally, it wasn't a good tackle. But I mean, yes, his studs were up, but I mean, it wasn't particularly high. It wasn't an ankle breaker, in my opinion. I think it was just a really, really harsh decision. And, it's now going to probably materially impact Southampton in the next fixture. I'm not sure who they're playing. But I must say, saying all of that about this weekend, this is probably the first time after a weekend or a game week, I'm really speaking about the refereeing decisions. And I think you must commend the Premier League for the changes they've made to VAR and to the refereeing this season. I think the games have been far more free-flowing. We're not talking about VAR decisions and lines and becoming, geometrists, after every game week. I think it's been fantastic changes. I think the margins allowed for the attackers are fantastic. I even think the touchline judges, or I think that's the name they have in rugby, but they've even been good at calling offsides, calling it earlier. So you kind of have to commend the refereeing body and say, geez, you guys are doing a better job. I think just this weekend, I don't know if a couple of the refs just were like, oh, YOLO, I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks after this or what, but it was really bad. But it's really nice that we're sitting here in game week 7 for the first time, or at least for me, for the first time, talking about the really, really shocking refereeing decisions. Yeah, that's my take.
Oh, am I up? Okay. Yeah, look, I think the Milner one, looking at it, I think it was cynical, sticking out the leg, looking one way, sticking out the leg the other way, and bringing Bernardo down. So to me, definitely second yellow. And then the Ward-Prowse one, I think I tend to agree with Wasim. I think the more you look at it, the more you look at the tackle in slow-mo, the worse it looks. I don't think it was that bad a challenge. Maybe a bit late, yes. But I think that is what VAR is going to do to any sort of tackle that looks like that. The more you look at it, the more angles get shown, the more you slow it down, the harsher the tackle looks. So that is now become part and parcel of the game, unfortunately. And like I said on the last episode, I'm still old school. I don't believe something like VAR should exist. Goal line technology, yes, because it's clean cut. But when it comes to offsides and red cards and yellow cards, it's going to work for you some games going to work against you in other games, and I feel that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
You
Just
say that, Mubeen. Sorry, Aif, but you say that. But I mean, there's literally trackers of how some teams are favored by VAR. So, it doesn't, there's that age-old adage of it evens itself over the season. At least now with VAR, we're saying, actually, guess what? Referees are favoring certain teams. And some teams, generally the smaller clubs, there's a detriment towards them. So maybe that at least provides a little bit of visibility.
Yeah, no, obviously it has its ups. If you
Yeah.
if it provides statistics like that, but I don't know. I tend to lean towards the old school way of doing things.
I'm such a drought sitter when it comes to this stuff. I sit so on the fence. ESL, VAR, I'm terrible. Excuse me.
luckily for you, everybody's allowed their own opinion. So it's not like we're going to judge you for it. But yeah, that's the end of our show. Don't forget that even though it's an international break, there's still something called the UEFA Nations League this week that finishes on Sunday. Yeah, so we're recording this on the Tuesday night. So the Wednesday is Spain versus Italy, and Thursday night is France versus Belgium. Those are the two semifinals, and then Sunday will be the final. So here's hoping Spain lifts the trophy. Hopefully.
What? You're
But
still living in that 2004 vibes, eh?
I'm never going to stop being a Spain supporter. I'm going to have to accept it. But yeah, that's a wrap on episode 5 of the 343 podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sporticast. Like and share this video and hit the subscribe button below. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify and Google Podcasts, and I'll put all the details in the description. But yeah, thanks Nikita, Wasim, and Mubeen for joining. It's been great as always. I'm AF4343. Stay safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.